in and join. And Sonia, good morning. And good morning, Lisa. Okay, this QR code thing, I don't know what it is. Can I turn it off? I don't know. Some of you asked me about it, and I don't know where to turn it off, right? Where to turn it on or off right now. So it says okay, maybe if let me remove from list, yes. And no, that didn't do it. Oh, there we go. All right. So the QR code, which I didn't understand what that was, that is now gone. And good morning. Good morning to all of you. I hope you're having an awesome morning, a positive morning, and everything's great in your lives. Yeah, there's lots of stuff in the news, but welcome first to your Freedom Coffee live stream, where we all have hopefully our cup of freedom. Yeah, I know the image is mirrored again. That was the old encoder fixed it. I don't know how to do it on this one, but it says "Honking for Freedom," and for those who understand the reference, it also says "Don't be a chooch" on the back with a picture of Prime Minister Diversity Blackface. But anyways, this is the time where the time of your day, hopefully the best time of your day, the highlight of your day is what I'm aiming for, where we celebrate all the freedoms that we have and we look to expand those freedoms in the future. And we do that by celebrating, by having a sip of coffee together to start our morning. All right, well, that's getting me started. And Jesse, good morning. Jimmy Sack still can't cross the border without a poke. I don't know. I think, have they not just changed that, or is that just the emergency status? So we'll talk about that in a second. And Pam, good morning. Megan, good morning. Lots of you are here. I'm going to start here in a second. So the good news today, that it's a sign of things to come, and that is that the Biden administration apparently has removed the emergency status for COVID. They terminated their emergency COVID policy. Woo! It's only what? I don't know, 2.5 years late from my perspective. And I'll tell you why that. I mean, me personally, I thought, all of us, we don't know what happened in the very beginning. Fog of war sort of stuff. The government finds out about this thing that was coming from China. I'm sure all of us were a little bit initially concerned as to what it could be, because especially those of you who are in Toronto, because we had gone through SARS, what was it, 10 years ago? Something like that, approximately 10, 11 years ago. And so people were concerned that, we're going to have to go through this SARS thing again, which also came from China, right? And but it seemed to be very early on that, from my perspective, how I saw it, that this whole we're still on YouTube, so I'm gonna try to figure out how to speak carefully around this issue. But it seemed to be that it was targeting a certain demographic of people, and the demographic was the elderly. Oh, don't tell me you can't see me again. Don't tell me you can't see me again. Hold on. Stay on page. Can you guys not see me? More technical problems. Okay. Well, this is the second encoder we're going to have to drop and move on to something else in the future, I guess. So let's see. Here we go. All right. Can you see me now? You're in the dark. Am I in the light now? Let me know if I'm in the light. Can't hear. Can't see. Can hear you fine on Facebook. Okay. All right. So let me close that off and start again. All right. I can't see me. Black screen. Still a black screen. Oh my God. Nope. Still in the dark. Still in the dark. All right. Let me just check on one. Well, I guess the only thing we'll be able to do is continue on to locals and do the audio stream. You've gone over to the dark side. That's not How's that? I think I know. I think I now know what the culprit is. I think I know what the culprit is. Let me know if you can see me. The culprit, I think, is this stupid new feature on Apple. Yeah, Apple has this stupid feature where you can use your phone as your camera, and I don't want to do that. And it doesn't. I can't figure out where to turn this feature on. It keeps enabling. All right, can see and hear you. No, don't, Bridget. I don't listen. Bridget, Bridget. I started with a pet emulator in the late 70s when I was 3.5 years old, and went on to a VIC-20 and a Commodore 64 and IBM XTs. I know computer. I have my history with PCs. That's not the issue. I think I know now what the issue is. If it goes black again, let me know, and I think I can fix it in real time now. I'm not sure, but anyways, okay. Let me. So frustrating. All right. So back to the issue that the Biden administration has now gotten rid of the emergency COVID status thing, whatever it is, right? All right. So, from my perspective, what I was explaining before is we're like 2.5 years late as far as I'm concerned, because I knew very early on, or sorry, I speculated early on. Nobody knows for sure, especially in the fog of war, that after talking to a doctor who I know and people in government who I've met, MPPs and MPs that I'm still friendly with quietly behind the scene that nobody knows about, and they had expressed that, okay, yeah, we don't know what this thing is. We don't understand why we're taking the policies that were. And in the case of the Ontario government, Doug Ford, the guy who froze our Freedom Convoy money, by the way, don't forget that. It was his injunction that helped block $3.5 million, I think, of your donation money. That was Doug Ford. So Doug, they explained to me that, yeah, we don't know what we're doing, and Doug Ford doesn't listen to a word we say. Other MPPs, we might as well not be here, because just Doug Ford just does whatever the fuck he wants, right? Pardon my language, but that's just how it was described to me. And it was people in Parliament were very, very frustrated with that, and it doesn't seem much has changed, right? Bridget, I had a VIC-20, 64, then Apple, and Sexton got a PC. I love you, man. I love you too. That's awesome. All right. So from my perspective, it seemed to be early on, we could tell that it was targeting people who were overweight and people who were elderly, right? And comorbidities, as they describe them. They would always use that euphemism, comorbidities, and just instead of saying, hey, listen, we're all fat. We're just all fat. We all got to lose weight. It's simple. And but it seems to be because of a fear of speaking honestly, or fear of the woke mob. The politicians and our bureaucracy was not honest with people and telling them exactly what the problem was. The problem was not we should be closing the gyms. The problem was we needed to open gyms, and all of us needed to spend time there, myself included, all of us, right? But we did the opposite effect. How much weight I gained a ton of weight during COVID. Couldn't go to the gym, couldn't do anything. It's very limited in what you could do. And that's my escape, was to get in the truck and go down the south, right? But most of us didn't have that. All right. So, and I think it also speaks to the fact that in terms of Western culture, how lazy and entitled our culture is. And you don't have to speak long to people in developing nations, or as I have the most experience in Latin America, to understand the perspective that they have on us, that we are lazy, we are entitled, and they say gordos, gringos gordos, that we're all fat, right? We're all fat, lazy, and entitled. That is the perspective of people around the world. And, there is some data to to support that. But anyways, because our politicians are too cowardice to speak honestly and tell us honestly what the problem was, I think that's what caused people who died from COVID, and that caused people who didn't, all of us who didn't need to be locked in our house, we didn't need these lockdowns and whatever. So in the beginning, fog of war, you don't know, but very quickly on, it seemed to be very clear that that was the issue. And also, you don't, not only the perspectives of people in the third world, Latin America, whatever, just travel around the world, and you see how much thinner people are than they are in the Western world. That was the whole problem. Jesse, yes, I'm going to get into that. Very, very interesting. I'm going to get into that in a second. So I think what we I don't know. I'm thinking about this over the long term, because now we have at least, the tide has shifted. The world has shifted in terms of its scrutiny over the COVID years, how the governments behaved. And, hashtag nothing to do with truckers, right? Like, it had nothing to do with us. But as every politician will try to sell people. But the question I have is the millions of businesses that were destroyed by the government around the world, the governments around the world, or the people who have lost everything because of government. It wasn't COVID. COVID didn't. I mean, obviously, there's killed some people too. But what about all the lives that were ruined by government? It was exponentially larger that were affected by government policy around COVID than COVID itself. It's really frustrating to see that the political class is just going to kind of, all right, we're done, it's over, let's move on and sweep it under the rug. Are you comfortable with that? Like, I'm not comfortable with that, because that just allows this same thing to happen over and over again, right? Businesses and lives that were purposefully destroyed. Yeah, 100%. There was, I think there was, Hanlon's Law comes into shape. There was a hell of a lot of, incompetence that took into place. I think people ascribe more malice that was necessarily there. They're just incompetent fools. I mean, that's what's in. Look, who goes into government for the most part? Let's say 80% is the Pareto principle. 80% are total losers. That's who get into it. And I saw that when I got involved in politics and ran as a candidate. Like, oh wow, I'm just surrounded by fucking losers. All right, I gotta get away from this. It's. Lisa says on what's it called, on Locals, that they are finally admitting that Sweden got it right. And that's really interesting, because you saw during the COVID propaganda, how quickly Sweden went from being the darling of the progressive left. Remember, they would always cite Sweden in data, Norway and Sweden. It was always Sweden. Oh, look at this progressive bastion of tolerance, and Sweden is the model country that we all have to be, and blah, blah, blah. And then Sweden said, we're not locking down. Racist bigots. Right? It was so funny. Like that. It was instant. It was absolutely amazing. That's how you know the perspective on COVID on that side took cult-like status, because they just completely would slip into cognitive dissonance, as they did on the case of Sweden. So Sweden overnight went to being their darling utopia to this racist, white supremacist, whatever they want to call it, right? But yes, they're finally admitting that. So what do we do? I mean, the problem is, you hear rhetoric out of politicians all the time. They're really good at rhetoric, but you know what they don't do? Anything. You'll hear rhetoric. You'll probably hear it amp up over time from the quote opposition parties, that, oh, we got to hold them to account. That's all they do. They say the words, hold them to account, and that's it. When I was going through, I did all these different levels of coaching and training from people who are in politics for quite a while, how to handle yourself in the debate, how to communicate, all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that I remember being told, this was by a friend of mine, this was informal. He said, the way it goes in a debate, you just use the phrase, according to studies. So you say your point, you say the word according to studies. And I said, yeah, but what study? And he said, it doesn't matter. You're in a debate, just say the phrase according to studies. And if they say we want a follow up, then in an interview, a media interview, then you say, okay, yeah, but I'll get you a follow up. Just send me an email or send my staff an email, and we'll give you a follow up. And then I said, then what happens? Is then you just ignore it. What do you mean? You just ignore it, go away. They forget about it, and they move on to the next thing. So this is why when I hear politicians speak and I hear certain phrases, I lose my mind, because I know exactly what they're talking. I know exactly the tactic that they're using in terms of their communication strategy, right? So one of the other phrases they use is, we're going to hold somebody to account. Who? Doesn't matter. How? Who cares? They're going to forget. Well, what kind of accountability? Doesn't matter. Just say the phrase, hold them to account, and then ignore it and move on. That's the state of our opposition parties right now. And I often criticize them because I like strength. I don't like I hate weakness and victimization. I just despise it. There's few things in this world that I despise more than weakness and victimization. And I told that story many times about my friend in the States who kind of inspired me and taught me about the importance of never being a victim. But that's what you see out of our political parties, because they're run by lobbyists. And what you're watching is a car salesman who's just pitching you something. They're gonna pitch you on, we're gonna hold everybody accountable. How? Well, we have some strategic plans, and we're looking at various things, and we're gonna look into the finance, and we're gonna look into. That's it. It's all smoke and mirrors. And it's really frustrating, because that's seen as our opposition. And that's why we were sabotaged and thwarted at the Freedom Convoy, because we were the only opposition. We were the actual opposition that ended up getting co-opted, and they tried to capture us to make us part of a political movement because we were the only ones who said no, specifically. I mean, I remember in an interview, they asked me, it was an interview or a press conference. I said it a couple of times. I think it was both an interview. They said, how long are the truckers going to stay in Ottawa? And I said, I don't know. Certain trucks have APUs, as long as you keep them fueled in an APU. We're in downtown in a city, so we have access to food. So we could stay here till, I don't know, 2023, 2024. And the looks on their face just it was brilliant. It was hysterical. And because we meant business, we were real. We're not backing down. We're not coming here. You know what I mean? Like, it was, we just want somebody to talk to, and we'll stay here as long as it takes, until somebody in the government has the courage and the spine just to come down and have coffee. I invited them so many times. Come down and talk to us, right? Liberal Party, come talk to us. We're not your enemy. We're all Canadians. Come hang out and talk to us. And the spineless weasels did not even have the courage to do that. What did they do? They took Prime Minister Blackface and they put him on a plane. He was going on vacation, and then he had to be isolated. The reason kept changing. He had like a coward, just like a freaking coward. And and I said at some place, somebody asked me, any politician would have had the courage to come out and speak with you, or any leader. And I said, not only that, I bet you Pierre Trudeau himself would have stepped outside of his office, come down for coffee to talk to us, right? Whether you like his politics or not, he at least would have had the courage to come speak to us. But that's lacking in all parties now, all of them. Where's my favorite username? Radso McKenzie. Government and controlled opposition use the same rhetoric. Remember the POEC, Communications School of JCCF, accountability and stakeholders. Yeah, exactly. It's really frustrating. And the other thing is, I see this a lot. I could describe it this way, that the lack of strength on the right and this might seem like a superficial thing, but go to the core essence of what's driving it. The right wing will never win the culture war because the number one concern is always sanitized language, right? You see that all the time. Like they're always in lawyer mode or parliamentary mode. The minute they see somebody who uses colorful language, which is how we all speak, it's how they speak, because I've spoken to these people behind the scenes. I know how they talk. They talk like a normal person, right? You know that expression, we swear because we care? Everybody does that. But when it's in the public sphere, all of a sudden, opposition runs away. Ooh, heard a bad word. Heard a bad word. It's going to upset some people. It's so infuriating. It's so frustrating. Good morning, Avril. It's good to have you here. Avril wishes everybody good morning. You're very sweet. So I think that is, look, I'm not saying and proponing that everybody should be dropping F-bombs all over the place. But my point is their primary concern, like the left, is language, is using bad language. You hear bad language, then you automatically have to dismiss and run away from the person. Yeah, again, Marata McKenzie, politically correct. The reason the phrase politically correct exists, it has a definition. It means factually incorrect. That's why it has the modifier political. Political correct equals factually incorrect. And that's what our leaders subscribe to. It's so infuriating. It's so frustrating. And you see, like the problem is these people, why do they run away? Because they are the weakest, wimpiest people in our societies. That's what makes up political parties, right? They're very good at hating they hate each other. They hate everybody else around them. But they're also good at stabbing each other in the back. And then, 20 minutes later saying, okay, well, let's get beyond this and kind of regroup. Like, no, there's something called integrity and loyalty. Like those were pillars of our society. And some of us have not forgotten that. That's why I can't, Victor's a political op. Yeah, listen, I'm the biggest pain in the ass to them. That's why they're doing so much, trying to cause so much damage to smear me. And it's not because I'm a political op. It's because I'm the opposite, right? And because these people are so weak, that's why it's so easy for lobbyists and third-party interests to gain control over our entire political class. So easy. Just throw a little bit of money, get a coward in there, and they'll do whatever you want. And that's the state of what we're in right now. And that's why I'm so passionate about explaining over time and dissecting and walking all of you through how the Freedom Convoy was subverted. Because this is a very, very important case study to show exactly how the political hegemony maintains control over everything, maintains controls over the narratives. So in the past, we were in a PR war with the government. Now we're in a PR war with the entire political class. And it seems there's just a few of us trying to lead this fight to expose and show all of you how this all works. And that's important for a couple of reasons. First, to prevent this from happening the next time around. So the next time we get an attempt to be subverted for any sort of, protest that comes from the middle class, working class. I mean, we're all classes together, right? But the next time it gets subverted, people know what to watch for, right? But there's something else. It's because of them. It's because of our stooges in the political class. We can't have nice things. I talked before about in an earlier stream what happened in the Netherlands. Well, they saw everything that happened during the Freedom Convoy. They tried to protect themselves from all the problems that we encountered. They tried to use us as a template to anticipate how the government would react, and it worked. And it worked to the point that they formed the BBB party, 3 words I can't pronounce. And the BBB party was the Dutch protesters coming together to form their own political party. And they managed to, in the last election, which was recent, they managed to get 20% of the vote. So now they're a significant political bloc in their parliament. So anytime all of this Klaus Schwab leftist BS gets brought to the floor of parliament, they can automatically veto everything now. So they've found a solution. But because of our cockroaches in our political class, that's what they stole from us. That's where we could have gone, but we didn't get there, right? So it's important all of us know to prevent this from happening in the future. But anyways, and all of this is why I continue to speak out. Not just this and other issues and whatever, but the problem, what you're seeing right now, is the slaves of the political class that get a little bit of money thrown at them, or a little bit of, hey, we'll fund your online platform, we'll boost your Facebook live streams or posts or whatever, or we'll throw you, that's the way they do it. They give them $500, $1,000 a month to do boosts of postings, and that then captures the person and gets them on board. I would call them whores, but apparently we can't use bad words, right? But so this continues to go on. This has not stopped, which is why I need to continue to inform all the rest of you and not to wake you up. So many of you here watching are aware, but to get you to be vigilant and resist the smears that get thrown in, not just in my direction, but in the directions of other people who go against the political, the big con Canada Inc., I like to call it, the conglomerate that works to ensure that we have the existing uniparty that we have, and that there's no other voices that are included in politics. And it's important. Anyways, people need to know that the Freedom Co-opt is controlled opposition. At the POAC, JCCF lawyers create a strategy to lie about the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, they did. I mean, anyways, is that not clear to anybody? If anybody doesn't understand that, please let me know, and I will cover that more and more. We'll go into more of the POEC as things go on. I have a couple of videos I want to go through and do one of those Saturday night drinking parties. And much like I dissected Punchy McGregor's fake documentary about the convoy, I want to dissect some of the testimony around the POEC, so I can show you at specific points where people are lying on the record, and which is why we got the report that we got, which was the Rouleau-Wilson report. And I call it that because it was Rouleau was the judge, and it was the Wilson JCCF Conservative Party / Liberal Party narrative. So that, and the reason they do that is so both political parties think they don't have to talk about the Freedom Convoy anymore. That's what they're trying to do. How much have you heard any political leader talk about freezing bank accounts, right? You might have heard once in a while, oh yeah, Justin Trudeau froze bank accounts. Doug Ford also sought an injunction on all the donation money. Doug Ford was up there with them. That's their team, right? You're not hearing them talk about that. I wonder why. Anyways, so what can we do? I think there's a couple of things. First, I want to caution everybody against a few things. First, don't get involved in fantasy schemes that are irrelevant distractions. I see so much of this going on. It's often promulgated by people who really don't understand how government operates, and which is fine. I don't expect everybody to understand. We all have our lives beyond government, and that should be, just a small, minute percentage of our life. But I see all of these, I see a variety of different initiatives that are designed to distract all of you and kind of pull everybody in different directions to ensure people aren't focused on the core issue of the restrictions on our freedoms, how the government of Canada behaved, freezing bank accounts, and invoking the Emergency Measures Act, or our equivalent of martial law, right? I see all of these little groups distracting away from that. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do how about we just still focus on the problem that still has not been solved, right? The Invocation of Emergency Measures Act and all the things I just said. So don't get involved in these fantasy schemes of, and I know some of the people, they're good-hearted, they mean well, but they just don't understand. Unfortunately, they have very fantastical views of how change is implemented in a Western democracy. That's not how it operates. It's corrupt like everything else. There's no question. But there's a level of corruption that was tolerable in the past, and now it's come to the point that's intolerable, right? So the next is it's so funny. Yeah, Robert says C11 and C18 certainly aren't going to help. Yeah, and I remember watching, what was the first reading of C11? I just saw a thing popped up on one of my feeds that even True North was calling out the opposition party, the Conservative Party, as celebrating and clapping. They do the clap when they pass a bill. When they passed the first reading of C11, those were your conservatives. So, and there were conservatives that were in favor of it from the very beginning. Sonia, no, they're not. First our chickens, now our cows. Okay, so the next thing is, don't get behind fringe political candidates, groups, whatever. Don't get involved in stuff that's really kind of fringe. All that does is that's part of the strategy to pull all reasonable people apart, because the key is to make those of us who were involved in the Freedom Convoy and pushing back against the government, the goal is to make us all look unreasonable, right? That's it. So if we look unreasonable, then the normies who are at home, not at home, but go to their 9 to 5, raising their kids, all that sort of stuff. The normies, they want to show us to the normies as being fringe lunatic people, sort of thing. And what does that do? That allows the normies to say, you know what, I'm just going to vote for Doug Ford. At least he's not crazy like these people. It's a persuasion tactic. It's marketing 101. And so that's the game. That's why it's very important that we don't go off had-cocked and join these. Apparently there's a fire. And join these, really fringe movements or fringe individuals. It's kind of like the rogue person, the rogue oracle who knows everything that nobody else does. Yeah, don't go there. Don't go there. All that's going to be done. All that's going to be is to be used to make you look silly and to make us look silly and to make everybody who just wants constitutional freedoms implemented and to push back against restrictions to make us look unreasonable, which was a big thing I was dealing with during the Freedom Convoy. That's what we call blowback. I was trying not only to, administer a media strategy that kept getting, sabotaged by Butt Hurt Locker and some other people who were, working for the political class. But not only did I have to deal with that, but I also had to deal with blowback. And this is where it comes, well, I'm not going to mention individuals. I don't want to get into too much, right? But just in general, stay away from the fringe characters who say extremely hyperbolic things and don't understand. They're not using it strategically. They actually believe in what they're saying, right? I love BJ. Oh, there apparently is a fire. I'm going to continue my podcast. The fire can wait. I'm busy. Well, listen, that's exactly how it was during the convoy, right? Like, we're busy. We have other stuff to do, right? Anyways, okay. Anyways, when it's a long thing, I need you to, because I'm still using the small thing. If you post a comment and the scroll bar comes up, like I can't read it. It's too much going on at once. But I'll go back to those in a second. The third is don't use, this is related to what I just said. When you're communicating, this is a basic communication, especially when we're talking about freedom movements and all that sort of stuff. Don't use sloppy language and hyperbole together. That's the death nail, right? That is perfect. That is gold for when you want to take somebody out of context is to have that combination of sloppy language and hyperbole. That's what the fake news media is looking for. And if you noticed, that's why the fake news media, despite the fact that I know they were following all the streams that we were broadcasting when we did our press conferences, and they saw when I went on GB News and all that stuff, if you noticed, they never once took anything that I said and put it on legacy fake news in Canada. Did you notice that? So I was the spokesperson during the convoy, yet the fake news in Canada would never put, they never quote mined anything I said on any of my statements in any of the press conferences or any of the TV interviews. There's a reason for that, because it would have been very difficult for them to do so. Everything that I said, I always made sure that there was a degree of context in every statement that I said that wasn't hyperbolic, right? When I went on Jordan Peterson's podcast, they've got, I don't know, 1 million views or something like that. We all know all of Legacy Media follows him. They follow Dave Rubin, all of these platforms. But they didn't quote mine anything I said. And specifically in Jordan Peterson's, the statement I did on Jordan Peterson at the end, I said specifically, it's time for our politicians and the media to tone down their rhetoric, right? So if they had acknowledged that, they had taken me, tried to quote mine me in the fake news media in Canada, then anybody who watched the original source would have seen that statement, right? So, and the reason is because I don't use sloppy language and hyperbole together. I do sometimes use hyperbole, and I do sometimes intentionally use hyperbolic language, but I never use the two together, because that will be the death nail. David, good morning. More on Bitcoin, CBDC, decentralized money is the key to stability. Sorry if I am off base. No, not exactly, Dave. David, we'll talk about that maybe in the next stream or something. Bitcoin, CBDC is completely different. Bitcoin is freedom. CBDC is tyranny, which is why we were able to get Bitcoin was the only money that got to the truckers in Ottawa. And it's amazing from all these people who are attacking me and Bitcoin, but you know, they virtue signal around the truckers like, hey dude, it's because of us that the only money that got to truckers was Bitcoin. But whatever. So big thanks to the Bitcoin community for doing that. Okay, I think odd comment from Marazzo McKenzie. BJ is the only one who doesn't have political affiliation. Freedom co-opted are liberals, conservatives, and Bernier cult. Yeah, I'm not tied to any political party. They actually all hate me. And which I don't know why. It's kind of like, you know, you maybe could stop being such authoritarian weasels and reach out to me and talk to me, but I'm not going along with their BS narrative, and that's why, right? Because they're lying. I've caught them lying, and maybe it's time for them to do a mea culpa and, you know, turn around 180 degrees. Maybe try a different strategy, but they won't do that because they're morons in politics. But yeah, and you know, hear that all the time. Oh, you know, BJ's political. No, I ran for the Conservatives, and to this day, I often regret it. I gave a speech at a PPC convention because Maxime Bernier asked me, and that was it. That's it, man. That's enough politics for me. I have no interest in being part of any of these cults. It's really quite disturbing. Anyways, okay. So those are the three things I would advise not to do. Don't get involved in fantasy schemes. Don't get behind fringe political candidates, and I mean fringe, for an example, specifically, with the exception of Ben Bankus, who's running for mayor in Toronto. He's hysterical. He's tripling down. Let's see how woke the woke supremacists want to go. So maximum diversity. Every other candidate is racist. That's his campaign. It's absolutely brilliant. It's hysterical. And the other thing is, don't use sloppy language and hyperbole together, because that's how you get quote mined, and that's how you become the sole individual that the fake news media tries to use to destroy a movement, because those two things together. Michelle Bland, 100% truth hurts. Yes, it does. People, you know what? This is the problem, that this is why it's going to take 1 to 5 years. I thought it was 3 years. Scott Adams suggests it's 1 to 5 years for people to understand and accept the truth. It's because people don't want the truth. That's just how we are. That's how we're wired. We we subscribe to a narrative. It's usually the first narrative that we're told we believe in, and then it takes a lot of work for people to, because you gotta start second guessing your belief system. You have to start second guessing what you already subscribe to, and it kind of, sometimes people's egos, all of us, our egos get in the way a little bit of that, and that's why I know it's going to take so long for people to finally accept and understand the future. But I'm in this for the long haul, and people will. But people don't want the truth. They say they do. We think we want the truth, but what we want is the truth to be our narrative, right? So it doesn't damage our ego. It'll take some time. I'm not terribly worried. Does this mean Canadians can cross the borders without a Vax Pass? Don't know. I don't know yet, but I think we'll find out today if that's the case. Or, Brenda, you can drive a tractor trailer. I've never once been asked for my vaccine status going into the United States. Into Canada, coming back one time before I went on Tucker Carlson, which I discussed that, and then I broke my ankle, and after 6 months back getting into the truck, I've never been asked for it ever. The truth is absolute, for sure, agreed, but it takes a while for people to accept the truth, especially when they've had months or a year of people lying to them, and that it spreads like a cancer, right? It gets all over, it spreads to all sorts of people, spreads like COVID, right? And it takes a while for the truth to start to spread. That's why there's that expression that's attributed to Mark Twain, that a lie goes around halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on. That's why, and that's where we're at right now. We're at that stage. All right. I was going to talk a little bit about this, but I think I'll drop it for next. Well, let me first get on to what some of you brought up, and Lisa, you brought this up, which was the entire Trudeau Foundation, their entire board, apparently has just resigned this morning. Now, that in the sphere of politics, and again, I'm not politically affiliated. I have friends in multiple parties who know I care about this country, and that's why they'll share information with me sometimes. And sometimes they'll want me to share stuff with you, and sometimes it's to be quiet and off the record, right? But I am not affiliated with it. I'm an individual. I'm an absolute, individualist, if you want to call it. And so the entire board has. See if I can find that post that you put up. Oh, sorry, that was Jesse. It wasn't Lisa. So yes, the interesting thing about that is that the Trudeau Foundation, the biggest secret, or the worst kept secret, apparently on Parliament Hill, and in Ottawa, is that was laundering money for the CCP, for the Communist Party of China. Is there information that proves that? Apparently, there is some circumstantial evidence that proves that. There are many people who have been working on it. I'm not knee deep into this stuff so much. But, almost the day after Trudeau was elected, apparently millions of dollars started funneling into the Trudeau Foundation. And that apparently allegedly was coming from the CCP donors, CCP influencers who are in Canada. So it's no coincidence that all the scrutiny around that MP Long Dong, the crybaby in Parliament, who he wasn't crying when he was coordinating with the communists to keep another fire, to keep the two Michaels in China. He wasn't crying then, right? Anyways, again, remember I said about weakness, that I despise weakness and victimization. There's few things I hate more than that. So Long Dong hopefully will end up in China and maybe in a Chinese labor camp at some point for embarrassing the Middle Earth, which I think what China means or something like that. So once Long Dong was exposed, and by the way, Doug Ford is not off. Oh God, no! Don't tell me. Ugh. Oh my God! Sorry, I just had a major problem. So I need to, All right, I have to use that. Sorry. So once Long Dong was exposed, we also saw around the same time Doug Ford's MP Vincent Key apparently also has ties to the Communist Party. And as I mentioned before, when did we know that Vincent pleads? Oh my God! I want to. Somebody I love. I want to break their face right now because they keep calling and I'm in the middle of the stream, and it just completely disrupted my my recording. So, technical issues. So once that happened, with what's it called? With Long Dong and Vincent Key, I mentioned before that when did people know that Vincent Key, the conservative member of provincial parliament, when was he aligned with the Chinese Communist Party? Do you know when we know? We knew before he was elected. Everybody knew. It was the worst kept secret in the Conservative Party. And you understand why I walk away from politics? I don't want to be around these people. Everyone knew. Nobody said anything. Just pretended like, no big deal. Just ignore it. He'll get us votes. That's all he cares about. He'll get us votes. Pablo Escobar was running. They'd be like, oh yeah, Pablo, come. You'll get us some votes. Like that's what's happened to that's the state of politics in Canada right now. So the Trudeau Foundation clearly, allegedly, from what I've been told, has been used to launder money since Trudeau was elected. And I guess there's too many there's agencies in the Canadian government now asking questions. You see there's a war going on between CSIS and the Trudeau Liberals, that Trudeau was trying to throw them under the bus. That's what the Rouleau Commission, Rouleau report did, that everybody in the media, the fake news media, ignored and didn't tell you, was the recommendations that resulted of the Rouleau Commission was to dramatically weaken CSIS, and CSIS is pretty weak right now, but is dramatically to weaken CSIS. And I guess CSIS decided they're now going to be, they're now going to retaliate, and I guess this is how they're retaliating, by saying, you know what, you've been using the Trudeau Foundation for the past several years, and we turned a blind eye. It's time for us to stop turning a blind eye now. And I think that's what's going on behind the scenes, plus a lot more. Again, that's speculative. I can't say that with certainty, but it does seem to be that's what's going on. I'm thinking because of the Sherman murder. Nope. Trudeau had nothing to do with that, from what I understand. But that's a whole other basket of speculation. I don't know Sherman, but I know I didn't know the Shermans, but I have many friends who knew them. I have a friend who was very close with them, actually, and disagreed politically, vehemently disagreed politically on issues. But that's not what it is. I know. But what you're hearing Brenda, is speculation. That's not what happened. Okay, so I think it's going to be really interesting right now just to look at what's going to be happening, because you're going to see a couple of things are going to unfold. First, on the Biden issue and traveling to the United States and ending the emergency state. This is the time when the political class gets weak, any political class, any administration. When they get weak and they need to, this is how they admit guilt. They admit they were wrong. Just quietly and quickly end the emergency procedures around the cerveza sickness in the United States, and then pretend and ignore that everything goes back to normal. No, this is now the time where they're weak. This is where you need to, for lack of a better analogy, step on their throat. This is when you need to really push, because now they know they're weak. They're going to try to ignore it. Now you need to start asking questions in mass. So that simultaneously applies to the Biden administration on COVID and the Trudeau government around the Trudeau Foundation. Now is the time. If my thesis, sorry, I'll take a little bit of freedom coffee. If my thesis is correct, that the reason the Trudeau Foundation board all resigned in mass is because they're getting significant pressure from within government agencies, I don't know, RCMP, CSIS, whatever it is. If my thesis is correct, now is the time. That's where he should be pushed over the edge. This is what everybody should be asking him about, right? In addition to freezing bank accounts, right? It's funny, is the Trudeau Foundation against bank account frozen? I don't know. But in addition to freezing bank accounts, the Emergency Measures Act, but also potential alleged money laundering through the Trudeau Foundation, that this is the time for everyone to push back. Because I think now even the people who are liberals, who are of sound mind, I'm not talking about, the extremist progressives, the communists, I'm not talking about them. I'm just talking about mainstream liberals who kind of disagree with them politically, but they try to mean well. I might disagree, but they try and they mean well. I think those people now are primed to hearing open criticism about Trudeau that they weren't willing to listen to in the past, right? I think that's what we got to, we can capitalize on. So this is all good news. This is amazing stuff. The Biden administration is on its back foot, as is the Trudeau government. And these latest thing could be, if there's not one thing that would topple somebody as greasy as Trudeau. Sorry, is it grease or is it shoe polish? I don't know. But there's not one thing, just because they've developed a cult of personality around him. There's multiple things. And when there's multiple things, then they all start to become cumulative and have cumulative results. And eventually will get people within his own sphere starting to ask about him. So now is the perfect time, right? So I think we got a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot of good things that are going to be coming down the future. This is why from the onset of when I started doing this podcast, that there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of problems. There was what was done to us in Ottawa by the entire political class was done to all of you, whether you know it or not, whether you understand it or not. There's a lot of people who still are unwilling to accept that the entire political class conspired to sabotage us. And I get that. I understand it's a difficult pill to swallow. I'm sympathetic. Can somebody put the fire out? I understand that, but I think this is why I've been optimistic the entire time. Things are going to change. The pendulum is going to swing back. I just hope it doesn't swing back too hard in the opposite direction, where people on the right start mimicking the behavior of activists on the left. And I do see us being susceptible to that. So I want us to, we want to move the pendulum over, but we also still want to be we don't want to behave like they did. We want to be open and tolerant and loving of people who will be going through this change and realizing that, you know what, we were lied to, and I apologize, and we need to be open to that, right? We need to be open to forgiveness. That's part of that whole, the exercise we do we've discussed here, the 5-minute journal, the exercise of getting ourselves into a state of gratitude, into a state of positivity. I think that's part of it as well. Canada's supposed to be a liberal democracy. Very few classical liberals left anymore. We're on the road to serfdom. David, I agree, but I think we've hit peak craziness because, you know, in my Discord, there are people who are of the more classical liberal type, as opposed to, it's not just conservatives. We're trying to get away from it being an echo chamber. That's why we want to build it out slowly. And there's a large number of people who would identify themselves as more liberal than conservative, but you know, I'm talking about, you know, party wise, who are now opening their minds and are toning down the rhetoric. And you see that with the National Telegraph. The National Telegraph has done a couple of interviews with that former Liberal MP, or he was a Liberal candidate, and then it was Long Dong, by the way, who threw him under the bus, the communist, who, what do you say, he was a sexual predator or something? He tried to Me Too him. That's the guy who was crying in Parliament. He tried to Me Too another member of his party. Because Kevin seems to be very strident in his opposition to the Communist Party and their degree of political entryism. And that's somebody who was a Liberal Party candidate. So he's communicated back and forth and done some interviews with the National Telegraph. He's done it with Wyatt, and you're never going to accuse Wyatt of being a liberal. That's for sure. Never. And God love him for it. But, you know, there's a respect that they're able to talk to each other. And, you know, Wyatt's done some interviews with him and covered what he's gone through in the Liberal Party. And those are all signs of good things in the future, that we're all going to be able to come together despite our differences in the future. And I think that's what we saw. That was the model or the template that the Freedom Convoy was, that all of us, there were so many people of different political stripes coming together around freedom. And the Freedom Convoy was just phase one. And that's why it was a threat to the political class. Okay, who do we got? Ryan, I'm more liberal. I even voted for blackface in 2015. Never again, though. Too many commies. So there you go, right? And so Ryan and Ryan, by the way, has been following me for quite a long time, and I really appreciate it, Ryan. And you know, we all got to accept the fact that we have different worldviews and different perspectives, and there's some things we'll agree on. There's few things we'll just never agree on, and the few things we'll never agree on, we just got to figure out how to compromise on those areas, and then we'll be good to go, right? But it won't happen if we still live in this world of this political class that can sabotage legitimate grassroots movements of people across the country coming together for the largest convoy in human history, despite all our differences. We can't let them get away with sabotaging that. That needs to be exposed, which is why we'll continue to do it. And that's why God invented something called cross-examination. So if you wonder why they're trying to smear me and make me look bad, remember the words cross-examination. That's probably why. Anyways. Okay, I never voted for him, and Singh and never would. Demons. Yeah, listen, the thing is, we all live in kind of our, Sharon, I agree 100%. But we all live in our own little echo chambers to a degree. Our echo chambers, our social networks, whatever, where, you know, what do they say? We're all, we each individually, we are the culmination of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. And I think there is some merit for that. So that's how we're able to, we'll hang out with people who share similar opinions as us and whatever. And Ryan is probably just from a different part of the country, is exposed to different things. And because of that, that's how we end up having different worldviews. That's why it's important for us to communicate with each other with people who disagree with us. That's why in my Discord, we have a left-wing room, a right-wing room, and an I don't know room, as we will build it out for more of us to, you know, respectfully engage on what we agree with and engage what we disagree with. And okay, we disagree. It is what it is, right? And as Ryan laughs and he says, you live and learn. Yeah. And remember, most of us are not so politically engaged. Politics should not be taking up this much of our life and this much time in our lives, right? It should be something that we address leading up to an election, aware of when there's problems, and that's it. And we live in a time where, it was Marx who said everything must be made political. Well, what are the Marxists doing nowadays? They're making everything political. And hopefully we'll get away from that as well. Friedland's husband is an investigative reporter at the New York Times. Is he really? Yeah, you know what? I think I remember hearing that. And the New York Times was, and she is George Soros's biographer, and Soros's company, or one of his companies, bought 33% of the New York Times during COVID. So if you want fake news, I give you the biggest pile of dog shit of fake news is the New York Times. It was really funny when they were trying to get a hold of me. They tried during the convoy in the New York Times trying to get a hold for an interview. You know what? I'll talk about it another time. I still have the text saved in my WhatsApp. It was so it was totally a bait and switch, because people think because I'm friendly and I'm nice and I have good energy, they think I'm ignorant and I don't see right through all of them. It's a common thing that happens in my life. And it was very funny. They were connected to me through somebody, and they just did a full 180. It was completely an attempted smear job. And I just said, no, thank you. I'll share that with you in another stream. We'll talk about the New York Times specifically. But anyways. All right. On that note, I'm going to have to cut it. Well, not cut it short. We're already an hour and 2 minutes in. And because anyways, there will be the audio version up, but the audio version will be cut off just when we start talking about the Trudeau Foundation, which, okay, whatever it is, what it is. A work in progress, but I think I now understand why the camera was going black, so that problem should be solved. And I think we're on the road to greatness. Avril, let's see, one more comment. Avril says, my husband is like that, comes off as a big dumb guy, and at the same time is so educated and smart. Wait, do I come off as a big dumb guy too? It's so funny when we're in, when the lawyers started talking in Ottawa. I knew what they were going to say before they did. And I just played that sounds great. That sounds great. I knew exactly what they're doing the entire time. But anyways, you don't survive one of the most dangerous countries in the world by not being able to see people's intentions and motives before they even are able to communicate them to you. BJ leaves feed. BJ leaves feed to his apartment. The only one not on fire. No, there's no fire. And if there's a fire, you know what? I'll figure it out. I always figure out a solution, right? Don't worry. If it's on fire there, I'll just climb down I'll climb down from one, with my ankle right now. I don't know. There's always a solution. Where can I find the replay? Anywhere. So I don't know if the live stream is working with Rumble. That's the next thing I'm trying to fix. But it always re-uploads to Rumble every night. So it will sync with Rumble. On the YouTube channel, so youtube.com/BJD online. Odyssey is now finally syncing. They finally allowed to sync my YouTube channel. So you have YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, and the audio podcast. If you want to listen to it while you're walking the dog or whatever, that is on all the podcast streams. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you use Overcast, iHeartRadio, whatever. I'm just starting with that. It's only the 4th episode in with audio. I still got some kinks to work out, as you can see right now. But the major platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and on Facebook. By the way, there is a Honking for Freedom Facebook page. So if you haven't joined it, that's where my live streams go to on Facebook, as well as the National Telegraph, who I've developed a relationship with those guys. They've agreed to help me. They're great. So all over, and so if you're on Rumble, search for Honking for Freedom on Rumble. So everything's the same. The title is my book, just to make it easier. And and there's also, if you take benjaminjdichter.com on your location bar in your browser, that'll go to my link tree that has all the links. So it has the book, it has the live streams, it has social media, all that sort of stuff. I'm just still refining it, but we'll get to it. All right, I promise at some point this will all look professional. Carla, yes, Honking for Freedom on Facebook. There's a Facebook page called Honking for Freedom. It's got a cover of my book as the icon. That's where I'm live streaming to, in addition to TNT. I like Rumble, but you still have to share on Facebook. I would love to get away from Facebook. I don't, there's something else I never understood. There's something called Minds. Do you know what minds.com is? MINDS.com. Minds is a censorship resistant version of Facebook. It's an alternative media Facebook platform. You can set up groups and pages. I have a Minds account as well. I know people are really frustrated with censorship on Facebook. That's why I wasn't using Facebook during the Freedom Convoy, because I had already been deplatformed by Aaron O'Toole when I was calling him out. They all brigaded me. So when they say he's a political op, yeah. Aaron O'Toole's team brigaded me on Facebook to have my account deleted. That's how close I am with the political parties, right? So I wasn't using Facebook during the Freedom Convoy, that's apparently where all the rumors about me started. People were starting to spread this stuff on Facebook, and I was so busy with interviews and dealing with Twitter and all that sort of stuff, so I didn't see it. But there is an alternative, and Minds is the alternative. If you all moved over from Facebook to Minds, you wouldn't have to worry about censorship, and Minds is arguably much better to use in terms of an interface. So just a suggestion, right? All right. Bridget says, Aaron O'Toole's office called me just before I left for the convoy. Yeah, well, tell Aaron O'Toole you're friends with me. Sucker had to resign. He's such an idiot. He's one of the biggest airheads in politics. But anyways, so in some places in the US, they are wanting blogs to be registered. Yeah, you know what else is last thing, and then I'll shut it down. It's really weird. I should talk about this. Weird about the US is not only stuff like that, but if you're I just found this out over the weekend. If you operate a business and you want to you want to expand your business and work with the government of California. I know this is happening in California. I don't know where else. But if you're tendering an RFP to the government in California, one of the things that will disqualify you from getting business with the Californian government is if your company is registered in a red state, in a Republican state. Is registered there. Not even that you are. So you could be hardcore Democrat and have your business in, I don't know, Mississippi, and you are going to be denied your application, your RFP, to work with the government because you are in a Republican state. That is a significant type of escalation. Like, that is crazy. So, anyways. All right, I got to run. My brother's trying to get a hold of me. I love you all. Please have an awesome day. Things are looking good. You know, the Biden administration is backtracking. The Trudeau Foundation is imploding. Let's hopefully get some common sense reality back. And we'll get there. It's just going to take some time. All right, I love you all. Have an awesome day. And I will talk to you all soon.